girlfriend and I wanted to uh, move up north. Um, we were looking at houses and everything, and the pandemic was happening, and so I decided to come move back up north first. So I kind of dropped the whole CE5 thing at that point, and and didn't really try it until a little bit later again. And so I moved back up north first. This was in September of last year in 2020, and my girlfriend was going to be moving a few months later to join me. I was going to fly down there, and the plan was to, you know, have her pack her stuff, take a U-Haul up here, get in an apartment, and start looking for a house. So I moved back up here, and I got this this job, this gig working for this place through a temp agency, you know, just to earn some cash. And anyways, so you know, I didn't completely put the whole CE5 thing out of my mind at this point, but you know, I was packing my stuff up, and I was transitioning, and I was moving back up north. At this point, I rented a cottage that my brother owns, and you know, it just had the basic stuff in there, everything that he needed to live basically. And I'm like, this is fine until my girlfriend gets up here and we can get in an apartment. But so after I was established though, and I started feeling more comfortable, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try the CE5 thing again. So, you know, I started doing following the app, and with the protocols, and doing the tones and the meditations and everything, and nothing really happened at first, and I'm like, oh man, that sucks. I guess you know, I was kind of getting discouraged at first, and you know, I was thinking about dropping the whole idea again until my brother and I decided to go hunting at the farm, the same place that I grew up, where I had those 3 other encounters. So, you know, he borrows me a gun and equipment and stuff like that, and we're gonna go deer hunting. This is deer hunting occurs up here in late November, and it's for about a week and a half, and it goes through Thanksgiving weekend. So it starts a week before that. So, okay, well actually maybe hunting season's only for a week. Anyways, so I had my deer stand picked out and everything. I hadn't gone hunting in, probably 10 years, I would say. So I wasn't expecting anything. I was just, you know, I had moved back up north, and really I wanted to spend time with my brother, my older brother. That's what it was all about. I didn't care if I shot at anything or anything like that. So the first opening morning on Saturday, we get up really early, like probably an hour or two before it gets light out, and so I head up to the farm from the cottage, and I get there, and you know, we gear up, and my brother and I walk back to our stands, and my stand was pretty high up in the air, probably 15 feet above most of the trees, and opening morning on Saturday and Sunday was just it was gorgeous. It was warm enough to be out there to tolerate it, and it was just open, beautiful skies, um, not a cloud in the sky. So we really couldn't ask for, you know, a better situation for hunting. Anyways, I still was having thoughts about, seeing UFOs and hoping that the CE5 thing would work. So it wasn't completely out of my mind at this point. And so I'm up in my stand and I have this wonderful view in front of me, right? And I'm looking out and I'm listening for deer too, obviously. And but it was still dark, you know, it was still dark when we go up in the stand. And I could have swore out in the northeast I seen, so right in front of my stand, out in the sky, I could have swore I seen something, but I'm like, is that something? I couldn't quite make it out, and I'm like, well, it's probably nothing. It's just my imagination. And so Saturday goes by, and the next morning, on Sunday morning, again, another beautiful day. We head up to the farm. We gear up. We go back to our stands. I go up in my stand, and I sit in my stand, and here I see, kid you not, an object in the exact same location that I thought I seen something the morning before. I see sort of like a red glowing object, I don't know, maybe a mile or two out, 1,000 feet in the air, doing all these zigzags, right-hand turns, going all over the place, right? And with how far it was, and it had to have been moving thousands of miles per hour. Maybe even 10,000 miles an hour. I don't know. But for, relatively speaking, for how far it was out, that object should not have been moving that fast with any conventional craft or anything that we have in what would be considered, our technology up to this point. So I automatically assume that it was some sort of UFO or UAP, and I'm like, wow, this is great. The whole time I was thinking in my mind, I'm like, well, it's this wonderful object that I'm seeing, and I've been trying to do these protocols, and I've been thinking about it, and here's this object. I'm like, what are the chances of that? And I thought to the object, so now I was trying to interact with it mentally. I thought, please don't go. I'm enjoying this. And sure enough, it was doing what it was doing, going back and forth for the next 45 minutes until it got light, and I couldn't see it anymore. I don't know if it disappeared or what, but so that was great. So then I'm really ramped up about CE5 at this point and excited to do it. And so about a month later, every day now I'm doing the meditations and the tones and everything else, right? So I'm so excited, and I'm enthusiastic to do this work, because it seemed to me that it was working, these protocols. And I didn't see anything for a couple of weeks later, actually. But the next encounter I had was another amazing encounter. And I was actually, it was 2 weeks later, and so it was basically like the beginning of December, and I was flying back down to Florida to meet up with my girlfriend so we could uh, drive back up here with the U-Hauls. So I get on the plane, and we're like, you know, 4 or 5 miles up in the air at cruising speed, right? We're going, and so the flight pattern was from Milwaukee to Chicago, from Chicago to Tampa, and we get up in the air. We're at cruising speed, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do a CE5. So I kind of lean back in my chair. I close my eyes and I meditate. And I meditate for maybe like 15 or 20 minutes. Mind you that the flight from Milwaukee to Chicago was pretty much less than an hour. And after my meditation, I look out the window and I don't see nothing. So I'm like, okay, you know, it was kind of a short flight anyways. And then, you know, we land and we have a layover. But then the next flight from Chicago to Tampa, we get up, we take off, we get up into the air, and we're doing cruising speed again. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try it again, and I'm gonna do the meditation and the protocols in the coherent thought sequencing. So I'm doing these protocols, and this time I did it for about a half hour, and I was like in the zone. You know what I'm saying? For any of those of you who meditate, like just completely deep meditation. And I come out of the meditation, and I look out my window, right? And I had a window seat, so I had a good view. And I look out my window, and sure enough, there's a gunship metal gray object, probably about a mile out. And I'm like, is that? I'm like, wow. Dang, look at that. It worked, you know? And so I'm looking at this object, and I'm like thinking to myself, well, I know that this phenomenon is telepathic, that it communicates through consciousness, and you know, and that's how we're able to initiate this contact, really. So I thought to it, I'm like, would you mind if I took a picture with my phone in a short video? So I did. You know, I zoomed in on my camera on my phone, and the pictures weren't very good, but I did get some halfway decent pictures. And I'm going to see if I can upload them to YouTube on my channel. And, you know, it looked like the traditional round shape, you know, donut shape UFO, gunship, metal gray, just a typical UFO. In one of the pictures, you can even see the reflection from the sun. So that was kind of interesting. But what was even more interesting was I felt like I had this connection to it, and it was so vivid and a beautiful experience. And the next thing that happened, which I was just awestruck by, I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to try something. And I thought to the object, I thought, I know that we're supposed to be able to have a consciousness, telepathic connection with this type of technology. And I thought to myself, I was wondering if you could power up for me to prove this. Within, kid you not, 2 seconds, this object starts powering up, it starts glowing a little bit, glowing, and then the whole object just turns as bright as the sun. And I'm like, wow, that is amazing. And then I take a few more pictures. Just completely crazy. I sat here I sat on the plane and I watched that thing for probably a good hour. So, mind you, we're cruising at 400 or 500 miles an hour. This thing is keeping up, no problem, in the same exact position where I can see it out the window. And it's weird because the time that it disappeared was like basically when we got the announcement that we were going to be landing in the next 30 or 45 minutes, and then and we started turning into Tampa, and then the object got out of view, and I could no longer see it. So that happened, and so yeah, I've just been trying to get ever since. I've been trying to get a group together here in Wisconsin. I live in the Fond du Lac area, and shortly after after that happened, I had another encounter maybe a couple weeks later, and that was over Lake Michigan, really early in the morning when I was going to an estate sale, and I felt like I was actually being guided from where this estate sale was, because I seen an object in the air, and I felt like I had a connection to it, and I kind of took this sort of weird path to Lake Michigan, and I had a perfect view, and then all of a sudden I seen these ribbon-like light objects over the water several miles out, and I took a pretty long video, a 10-minute video. That's uploaded to my YouTube channel, by the way. And so then, after that occurred, not too much happened after that. I kept doing the meditations and the tones and everything for, the next month or two, and I was kind of busy with life anyways. But then I showed my girlfriend, who was moved up to Wisconsin with me at that point, these pictures in that video, and she was in tears because she thought, her and her family thought this whole time that this UFOs were real. She thought that this was something that was legitimate, and let me remind you that she's actually a marine biologist, so she's a part of the academic circle. So it's great that I was able to get her involved with this. And so now we got somebody in an academic field that's in this fold, in this contact fold, or CE5, or however you want to say it. Anyways, so I show her these pictures and video, and her heart just melted when she's seen these things. So I'm like, look, would you like to go out under the stars and do this with me? I'm on this journey, and I'd like you to be a part of it. Join me in being an ambassador. And she's like, yeah, sure, I'd love to do this. I'd love to try these protocols. And we tried it in early spring, and early in spring here in Wisconsin, it's frigid. It's really cold, and we were outside and we got cold, and she was kind of annoyed and tired and stuff. So we didn't see nothing that night the first time we did it, and that's fine. It wasn't really conducive to what we were trying to do, and I find that that's typical with doing this. If you're not mentally there, you might not see nothing, and that's okay. I've had plenty of experiences like that. But when you're in the zone, you're going to see all sorts of things doing contact work. So fast forward to a few months later, and boy, I don't know, April, so a couple months ago, we go out to the farm to try CE5. and man, was that crazy. Um, so she was highly skeptical at this point. I kept explaining to her the protocols, how kind of how consciousness works, and how we communicate through consciousness. And she was skeptical, and rightly so. Uh, she's a marine biologist who has been teaching for the last 12 years at a university. So you can't blame her. And so, I'm all gung ho about it at this point. So, we're out at the farm and we see objects moving over, and I'm like, oh, there's a UFO, and she's like, that's probably just a satellite, blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right, and I'm great that I had her with me because she can check me, you know. Not every object that we see out there is going to be ET flying around or something that's transdimensional. So, um, but she's kind of getting discouraged a little bit, and but she's kind of getting into it, and at this point I had bought a meditation bowl, so I'm like, why don't you try that thing? She's like, okay. She's like, she liked meditation bowls, and so she gongs it, and she's doing the meditation bowl, and then she keeps doing that, and she's really getting into it, and we're relaxed and everything, and then all of a sudden she sees, bang, a flash, and she's like, "Did you see that?" She she flipped out. We seen one of the flashes, and what was strange was I hadn't seen any flashes up to this point, so even that was new to me. I seen